What's your opinion about what Pakistan can do or should do to root out the training camps?
I think they should display to the world that that's what they intend to do. They say that they're against terrorism, then let's locate these bases. With today's satellite technology, surely it can't be that difficult. We can see an ear of corn growing in Russia from outer space. So, you know, we must be able to pinpoint these camps and let the Pakistani authorities deal with them. Let the Pakistani authorities deal with them.
Right. So because if America enters into the region, that will only fuel more hatred and more violence. America should not, I mean, we learned from 9/11 that using military to counter terrorism doesn't work. It only creates more terrorism. We have a lot more terrorist activity now, a lot more terrorists out there because of America's military involvement there, and then it ends up costing us lives and money, and we don't see the results.
Okay, Richard and Brandon, the Pakistanis should be held more accountable. Terrorists from Pakistan are crossing over into Afghanistan, Iraq, and into India. You're exactly right, Richard. That's kind of what we're speaking of here. But Musharraf had a very hard time. You know, he was trying to straddle that line, as you said. These are tribal factions. They are Pakistanis. To go up and root them out, why? I mean, how do they do that? It's their own people.
One of the ways is economic aid. Instead of spending so much money, in the past they gave Pakistan so much money for military aid and for bases and for the military complexes there. Invest that in economic aid where you can create jobs and other things. But of course we have our own problems here as far as the economy, so we're not in any situation to help other people. But I think this is an issue that for the Indians and the Pakistanis and even the Afghanistanis need to get together and form their own alliances and counter this in a united front and not be provoked. Because one of the things I think these militants were trying to do is to provoke some sort of action between India and Pakistan, that they can go to war with one another, because these terrorists will thrive in that type of situation.
What is your experience in the Pakistanis being willing to cooperate fully, as Condoleezza Rice says, with transparency and turn over these militants to the Indian authorities? Why would they do that?
Why would the Pakistanis turn out? To show the world that they're intent on stamping out the terrorism and that they're going to cooperate with India over this atrocity.
I think it was a reasonable request when the Pakistanis said yesterday that if all India has to do is turn over the evidence to prove that those individuals in Pakistan are in fact responsible for these attacks, and they'll be glad to cooperate and turn them over. And I think that's a reasonable request. It shouldn't be just blindly, okay, give us your people, and then, you know, without having to show any evidence. And there has to be some sort of due process. When dealing with terrorism, regardless of the acts that are committed, which are vicious and horrific, we have to, especially here in the West, remain true to our values and our ideals. That's the best arsenal that we could respond with. Our American ideals of fairness, due process, and other things.
All right, we'll take a break. I want to talk to Steve Prill in a minute about how this is a sign that terrorism is morphing into a different kind of strategy that we should be aware of, and we'll be right back. JD via email. America and Pakistan know where the terrorist camps are, and Pakistan is reluctant to do anything about the terrorist camps. Is he right that Pakistan has been reluctant to deal with this?
Well, they probably have, because, I mean, Pakistan has its own problems. Look at their economy. Look at the situation where they had this huge diplomatic fight between Musharraf and the opposition. Look at what happened with Benazir Bhutto. I mean, there are a lot of people that think that there are forces within Pakistan, foreign forces, whether they're coming from Afghanistan or from any other part of the world, that are meddling in their affairs and trying to destabilize that area. One of the important things is that Pakistan is the only Muslim country that has a nuclear weapon. And they see that as a way to defend themselves from India, because India also has a nuclear weapon.
Yes,
and people are thinking that the foreign nations are looking for a pretext to go in to be able to take those nuclear weapons out of Pakistan. Obviously, so it's a very difficult situation for the Pakistani authorities right now.
All right, Vicky in Polk City, although that man said, I guess you mean Ahmed Bedier, that not all Muslims are terrorists. They certainly are the majority. They certainly are the majority. This is India's 9/11, and we should crack down on them all.
That's a very disturbing comment, and you hear that every now and then. Who is all? You know, are you going to crack down on me? Are you going to crack down on innocent Muslims around the country? Crackdown. Imagine in 2002 there was a crackdown on Muslims in India. 2,000 of them were massacred by Hindu Indians in Gujarat. It's been widely reported. Even the Department of State condemned that because of an incident that took place, an explosion or a fire on a train, and somebody screamed, "Oh, it was Muslims that did it." It turned out to be just an accident, but by the time they discovered it was an accident, 2,000 Muslims were massacred in Gujarat, India. It didn't even make the news that much in this part of the world. They've already had their 9/11, and that was in 2002. So this was definitely not their 9/11. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we had the Columbine gunman shooting. We had the Virginia Tech shooting. Of course, Virginia Tech was one person. He took out 30 people. These were 10 guys. They're going to kill more people. This is not an act of war, and it's indiscriminate. Many Muslims were killed in India. Imagine, India has 1.1 billion people, 1 billion with a B, and 13% of them are Muslim. That's like 140, 150 million Muslims. If they're all violent and not peaceful, then you'd have a lot more problems.
All right, Steve, before the program, you said that this shows that the type of terrorist attack seems to be morphing to a new strategy. They did not go over there with a bomb. They came in an amphibious attack, coordinated and active roving gunmen. What is this signal to you?
Well, it signals that there's going to be a change in tactics. And 6 months ago, we had intelligence that Al-Qaeda, as well as other terrorist organisations, were going to change their tactics. You know, they're used to planting a bomb in a vehicle in a street. Well, a bomb can't think. When that bomb explodes, you know, the amount of people that are around it, it depends on the time of day, etc. We've seen here that 10 gunmen have killed nearly 200 people. They're actually thinking machine. You take it from gunmen to suicide bombers when they know exactly when to explode that vest because there's a majority of people around them in a shopping mall. I think we're going to see a lot more attacks like this, where we're going to have smaller coordinated attacks at the same time, because it throws the authorities into total disarray. This was like, we mentioned Columbine, or an active shooting scenario that we have in the United States. This was 5 or 6 active shooter scenarios going on in one small area, and 10 men actually managed to close the financial city of Mumbai for 3 days.
Without a single bomb.
Without a single bomb.
But it also shows that, I mean, there were signals that the intelligence in India didn't pick up. They admitted that they saw some chatter, they knew something was going to happen, but they didn't prepare themselves. So authorities also have to prepare themselves. Just like we had signs before 9/11 took place here that something was going to happen and the authorities dropped the ball, they also dropped the ball there. There's no reason why 10 people should hold an entire city, like 19 million people under siege. Now, the Indians have moved on, picked up, because India, and not many viewers might not know this, but India is the world's largest democracy. It's a very vibrant country with a lot of culture, and they're used to getting, picking up and going and moving forward, and I think they have.
So what does the U.S. do to prevent a similar attack on our shores?
Well, I think the U.S. is better equipped. Our first responders are far better equipped than the Indians.
They didn't do so well.
The Indians did not do so well. I've witnessed the Indian Army firsthand, and it took up to 8 hours for the so-called Black Cat Commandos to get there, the National Security Guards.
8 hours?
8 hours to come from Delhi. They don't even have their own aircraft. I mean, India really needs to look at its own internal security. It needs to put money into it for training and better equipment. These guys are still using World War II rifles. In fact, I saw one footage where 2 soldiers were sharing one gun. This is what it's degenerated to. Whereas in the West here, in the United States and in the UK, I think
major areas have SWAT teams.
Absolutely, they do.
And better communication, obviously.
So, but this idea of an amphibious attack, I've read recently that the U.S., the biggest vulnerability is the coastline, is the waterways. I mean, we're so busy searching the airplanes and passengers on planes, but a big vulnerability is the coastline, and this was an amphibious assault.
Well, they have also, the Coast Guard, and they're usually in this area, they're monitoring for drug activity. But again, with the sophisticated monitoring equipment, they're able to spot boats and other things. And with quick communication, I mean, you know, right away, people in this country know what to do. You call 911, the police are there in a few minutes. Then you call in other support groups, and they can, with helicopters and other things. We're better equipped in this nation to not allow something like this to happen.
You know, we're never going to find out, but I would like to know, because autopsies are not going to be done on the majority of these people. They will on the Westerners, obviously. But I would like to know how many of those people were actually killed by the security forces because of their ineptness.
Oh, gee. I hope you're wrong about that. I'm sure that will come out eventually.
I'm sure it will, because, you know, they were running into these hotels totally unprepared, just flying off rounds everywhere.
Wow. All right, we'll take a break on that note. We'll be right back. I'd like to thank today's guests, Ahmed Bedier with the Human Rights Council, Steve Pearl with Grand ISS. Thank you, gentlemen, for a conversation. Learned a lot today about this India situation over there and continue to follow it in the days to come. And thank you for all of you for emailing and calling. Continue to share your opinions with us here on Your Turn. Back again at 5 o'clock, everybody. Have a great afternoon.